Welcome to Market Buzz. I'm Greg Schnell, the Canadian technician and host of the Market Buzz. Each show we do a deep dive into different industries using weekly charts to see what is happening on a long timeline. Please follow me on Twitter at Schnell Investor, and you can also find my blogs on ospreystrategic.org as well as StockCharts.com. So the market's trying to base here. It's struggling quite a bit, actually. The technology names, just every time an earnings statement comes out, it seems like somebody else wants to sell a chart. So the one thing I'm starting to notice is bonds have been rolling over for 2 weeks or so, and some of the financials are starting to jump up this week. And so I thought I'd bring it to Market Buzz just to talk about how we can analyze that as it starts to move. Whether or not it follows through, don't know. But to me, it looks like it's all set up to try and get going here. It's not just the strong push today. I think the bigger thing is if bonds are going to roll over, then there's a real opportunity here for the banks to kind of recover. And there's some belief that the Fed won't even be able to raise the interest rates as much as they expect to because of the slowing of the economy and the speed of the slowing of the economy. So we're going to go inside the banks mostly, but we could do a little broader into the financials if we get time. And then if you've got any questions about what we offer at ospreystrategic.org, you can head over there, check out the membership service. The annual one is less than $20 a week, $860, or try 1 month at just $7 just to see. That would give you 4 weekly newsletters and 4 videos as we try to mark and work our way through the market low and hopefully a market moving higher here shortly. So again, as of May 25th, that's kind of what we're looking for, and lots of stuff over there to go check out, articles and whatever. So let's jump into the charts. First of all, where are we on the indexes right now? So the indexes have been grinding lower. This is May the 4th, May 25th over here, and you could just see a gentle down movement. I think the real question here is we have a lower low in price, this 60-minute chart, and a higher low in momentum. And we have the same thing on the banks, and the banks are actually almost back up to this, I'll call it $47 level, just to pick a number, where, that's kind of a horizontal top line. And if this is a series of a low, now a higher low, and a higher low, perhaps we're ready to finally break out and might get a push to the upside. When we look on the daily charts, everything's still below the 20-day moving average, so that's not very comfortable. One thing that I like to use it a lot, is my PPO trend line. When I start to see something like this that's been trending lower for a while, but I like to be able to drop this trend line on here. And the fact that this is starting to break out suggests to me the market is trying to change the trend, and maybe the rally only goes from 47 to 55 or whatever, 20% or something. That's still a nice rally. I like this signal right here, right now, for breaking this best fit line, or in this case, it actually matches right across the tops of all those peaks. But if it's going to start to turn higher, this is where I'd want to get on board rather than waiting for it to move 3 weeks and then start to decide to get back in there. Okay. So when we do that, and I'm just going to save this up, I always like to save it with today's date, and then I've got a chart list that every time I save a chart that I'm not putting into some specific group, I just save it there so I can go back and I can scan it, and I'll show you what's in this list already. But it just builds out pretty quick, and anytime I look at a stock or whatever, so here's SPY, and each time I create a new chart. So this isn't my weekend review stuff, it's just as I'm working through the week, and I put them all in here, and then I can go see how many times I've looked in on Tesla or whatever and just check out what's happening on the charts. So if you're looking to just kind of build I call it a chart list, that's literally my list of stocks that I've looked at as I'm working through my day, trying to see what's going on in the market. Okay, and we could do the same thing for the SPY, right? We could just go here, and what you'll notice is the downtrend that we have here on the KBE is a lot shallower than the one we have on the SPY. This SPY has been really, really steep. I do like the fact it's trying to break, and our PPO is just ever so slightly negative below the signal line. So any turn up here, and I think we could start to get some momentum, at least to try and get back up to the 440 level or whatever, and see if we can get there. So anyway, that's kind of what I'm looking for here. It's not as easy to just kind of say that, but the big thing I think for me is when I look at the broader picture, the market's been trying to pull back a lot here. And even on Tuesday, as it pulled back and started off, it ended up closing at the high of the bar. And if we just look, this one moved up quite a bit off the lows and took out, it had made a lower low, closed higher. Here it closed higher again. Here it pulled back, took out the prior day low, but not this low, or I'll call it the marker low that we had going on from about May the 12th. So I like the setup here. If this trend line starts to break, I think you're going to find all of a sudden the market tries to make a rapid move up. We'll see if that can happen. So here's the banks, and again, this is just a 1 week view, but if we just go to end of one day, wasn't that significant, but I will say we had some banks starting to turn higher, and the chart that surprised me was JP Morgan up almost 7% this week. And so it's one of the reasons, again, is it the fastest moving industry? I didn't even try to find that. This is just literally helping people manage how to work through a bottom was kind of the concept here. And what I wanted to do was just show, okay, I've identified an industry group. JP Morgan moved up 7% in the last 2 days. That's a pretty hefty move. And so we can see that there's a 10-week moving average going down here, and it looks like it wants to try and break out of that. Let's just zoom in a little bit. And we can draw a big long trend line on my PPO here. That's the big one. There's also a more shallow one just for the last 6 months or so. If all of these can start to break out, I'm pretty interested. And my full stochastic started to turn up this week. And again, that measures where price is over the last period of time, in this case, 1 quarter or 14 weeks price action. And so it started to move up, so it's no longer in the, I'll call it the worst part. It's actually moved up somewhat. And now the real question is, can it break out? So a couple of things I like on this chart. I'm just going to go like this. The full stochastic, this trend line doesn't mean anything to me ever. I know it's there, but that's not a trend line that I actually care about. This one I care about a lot, the relative strength compared to the S&P 500. That one matters a lot. And then the other one that I like is to take a horizontal line on my scooter ranking. And if you were below 25, I like it when it finally gets out of bed and starts to charge. And so that's happening this week for the first time. We're still relatively close to the bottom. So if this could move up meaningfully, I think that's a pretty good place to look at JP Morgan. And again, I'm not sure that there's a lot more downside risk unless the stock market really, all of a sudden we have banks imploding and that kind of stuff. I get the feeling that we're most of the way there already. So there's 2 different trend lines in here. It's not that big of a difference, but I have the one trend line just from the peak in November, which was the stock market peak on the NASDAQ, and then coming down in here. And if it could start to break out here, first of all, that's a 6-month trend. That's long enough for me to break. And then if it could break this big 1-year trend, I think that's a bonus. We're 2 days in and price looks like it already wants to accelerate, or volume looks like it already wants to accelerate meaningfully. So perhaps we could just see these bank stocks continue to move higher. Okay, so that's what attracted me to the whole thing. We're going to go back now. So there's different ways to look at this. And again, I can sort by price or whatever. I have these numbers on here from the last time. From the last time, where'd that go? And these numbers basically were the ranking order of how stocks were behaving at whatever time I figured it out. So we want to get rid of those numbers and do a new rank order on something. We could use scooter ranking or anything we want to, but let's go get rid of those numbers. So the way we do that, we move up here and we go to the edit function on here, clicking on edit. Now we scroll to the very bottom. I'm using function and the arrow key. Select all, and then I want to, don't delete the charts. I want to remove the numbers from the charts. And when I do that, it's going to get rid of those numbers that were at the front, and now they don't have anything, so they're sorted alphabetically. We need to go back to some sort of sort order. So as an example, we could go to performance and just look and say, okay, here's the 1 day performance, 1 week performance. That gives us some ideas. Well, but we can't attach the numbers in this column. But I think it does a good enough job of just showing us we've still got lots of stocks with lots of red going on here. There's no need to be calling for an early turn. Whether you use this on the software group or the bank group, it's all just to help figure out how to go manipulate the chart lists and that kind of stuff. But we have an opportunity to do so because these are starting to move. Okay, so let's go to the summary mode. And in summary mode, we're going to pick 1 week just to get it going. And then we need to change our ranking so that it puts whatever the biggest one first or the worst one first. And then we got to put the numbers back in this order. Otherwise, it'll change all the charts and just show them to us alphabetically. And we actually want them to show us in the order of strength. So now I have the numbers on the front of these, and if I click this, it's going to hold that order. Now you can see that is the back to the intraday view, but if I went for 1 week view, now all of a sudden this sort order is exactly what we've picked. Okay, let's click in on a chart and make sure it's showing us what we want to see. I think it is. Now again, as I'm working through the chart list here, a few things are coming to my mind. First of all, can banks start to get going? And one thing I didn't show was, it would probably be helpful if I do that as part of this setup here. Let's go get the predefined group, and we're going to go get the sectors. And when we look at the sectors that have been performing okay over the last 200 days, we want to go down to whatever. Let's just pick 10 days or something like that, 11 days. So over 2 weeks, energy is clearly the performer. Financials are starting to perk up here, and now let's just go back to 2 days. Financials not very good. Let's see if we can get 3 days in here, 4 days. At least it's starting to perk up. But what we still see is a big area here where things are weak on one side and strong on, I'll call it the defensive side, and this is the growth side. So it shows us that we're still in this, I'll call it concerned area. But the second thing I want to go get is the bond yields. And the easiest way for me to do that is to just go to a chart list. I might even have it right here. Yeah. Okay, so this is the chart yields. And I'm just going to shorten this time frame for us. And the point I want to make is that these are starting to roll over after having a massive run up from September on. So it's this rollover that we're looking for that makes me think financials might have an opportunity. Okay, so now we're starting to see these bankers turn higher, and the full stochastic is starting to move up. And again, that can be a nice signal where you get the stock to pop. Now what you don't know is, are you here or are you here? And you're at the beginning of the next long move, or are you just we just don't know that. But the one thing I would say, look at this scooter ranking. It's already at 70, showing us that this is one of the better stocks in the large caps, or in this case, it's a mid cap. But it's moved up to 75% already, and it's just getting started here. So the price action means it didn't fall as much, and now it looks like it's ready to turn higher. And it was one of the top performers in 2021. So Société Générale is out of Paris, I believe, or France at least. Anyway, now that we have the chart set up, let's go look under View All. And the reason for doing that is we can, scroll a little more quickly. But what I want to demonstrate here is not just that the chart's turning up or not turning up, how the indicators are starting to perform to help us understand the change in what's going on inside the stock. So the full stochastic tells us the price action within the stock. The purple area tells us the price action relative to the large cap S&P 500. Is it starting to outperform? Is it still underperforming? And what we see here is it's actually started to turn up a little bit. And then what I like about the StockCharts technical ranking, it showed this as being terrible, and all of a sudden this thing is now becoming one of the top performing stocks very, very quickly. So if I was to lean in towards some of the banks, I'd want to take ones that are starting to accelerate at the beginning of the move. I don't want to kind of find the last dog in the park who's, finally starting to wander home. I want to find somebody who's sprinting. And so we're looking for, what was the beach ball held underwater and it starts to pop up. Okay, so here's one, and look at that, how strong the SCTR has been on this Italian bank. Been holding up here since January, so even during the stock market pullback, well, it did have a pullback for the month of April and a little bit of May. It's literally started to turn around already. It's been climbing for 2 weeks while the index hit new lows, and it's up to another 6% this week. And I was surprised at how many of the Italian banks were near the top of the list, actually. So here's the European banks, and again, Christine Lagarde from the EU doesn't seem like she wants to be as forceful on moving up the interest rates because of the problems they're having with a potential for recession in Europe due to the war in Russia and the Ukraine. So this chart, you can see that this stock rarely makes it into 75. It ran up, pulled back, and now is running up again. That looks extremely bullish to me. It doesn't get much better, and the PPO is bouncing right off zero. For me, this is a really nice entry into the charts. Okay, so Intesa Sao Paulo, this one's been in a big downtrend, starting to work its way higher. A nice push again, up 7%, but you can just see all of these scooter rankings were beaten down below 30, and now they're all starting to turn up. I really like that. That's a positive look for me. PPO looks a little weak still. I don't have a nice trend that I could draw here. So I just don't like when they suddenly lurch down. I feel like that could happen again. And this one really seems to fall out of bed very quickly. It doesn't just kind of gently work its way lower. Banco Santander, just migrating lower. Everything's starting to turn up here, so it still looks okay. It's not quite as prolific a chart as some of the others. This BNP Paribas, another one out of France. So we've got a downtrend. It's now moving back above its 10-week moving average, and it looks like it wants to go above its 40. Scooter ranking is turning back on. The stock has been here before, so it can get into that top quadrant of top performing stocks. That's a pretty nice feature. And the PPO is about to give us a buy signal. So the chart looks okay. Barclays, same thing, big downtrend here. Wouldn't take much to break that downtrend line. And these are all starting to fire up. And again, as we look through these charts, we're going strongest to weakest. So eventually we're going to find that they aren't turning up at all. Mizuho Financial, so out of Japan. And you've got a big downtrend here for the last 6 weeks. It's starting to turn and burn higher. Not only did it gap up on the open, it's held it, and now it's working its way up. It tried to take out, well, it looks like it did take out 3-week highs and a little bit further, and all of a sudden we'd be at 5-week new highs on the stock. So from $2 after being at $3 just in February, $2.20 to $3 is quite a big move down. The stock looks like it's ready to turn higher. Okay, this one's been going up for 3 weeks. I really like this where the PPO was sitting above zero. So it was below zero, came up above, pulls back, and then takes off. That is a really nice signature, and I like it when the StockCharts technical ranking makes that kind of a wave, runs up, pulls back, and then kicks back into high gear. We saw that over here. Stock went on a really nice run. HSBC Holdings, we see a downtrend on the PPO, still above zero, so still a positive stock, positive momentum. But what we want to see here now is that this starts to turn right away. It's bouncing off its 40-week moving average, which is a pretty promising place. And we've got a bit of a pennant pattern building here. Could start to break out. So another one, HSBC looks okay. Credit Suisse, this one's been down and out, testing the COVID lows here. PPO is right at the bottom of the scale. This isn't my favorite chart to go get, but I do like the fact that after being abysmal for a long time, I was going to go get a line here, but I'm in I'm in this scroll mode with StockCharts. So what you see here is if there's a horizontal line at 30%, we're just starting to turn above that. The problem I have is the stock only became average after it was oversold. So it moved up, but just became average with the other large cap stocks. Mitsubishi Financial, again, this one trades really weird. All the Japanese names are really hard to figure out right now. They just wobbled around for the whole spring. It's been crazy. Anyway, so $6 is a rough, I'll call it middle of this whole move. PPO looks like it wants to bounce and zero it, start to turn higher. Credit Agricole, big downtrend breaking. I like that. Full stochastic starting to turn up. All of these things are starting to work in our favor. And again, as the charts change, I want to get involved early, not late. So I don't want to wait 3 weeks and say, gee, I wonder if the banks are ready to move. So for me, I'd like to get in as soon as we start to see, especially this relative strength line and my PPO on the stock actually starts to break a trend line or gives us a positive cross. In this case, JP Morgan, was below the 30. If it ran up to the 70, I'm pretty sure we'd get a nice run here. And the stock, it's probably one of the smoother. Notice how there's no real large gaps on the chart. There's this one from COVID, but other than that, it's pretty stable stock. Citigroup has been pommeled. It was $77 down to 45. I could draw a PPO trend line on here. Let's go do that. Actions, annotate. And then what we're going to do is just see if this can start to turn and break out higher. That would be nice. I like the fact that it's going above the 10-week for the first time since February. Full stochastic is starting to kick in. So this is good. And then the scooter ranking, just fix this here. If we put a line in there at 25 or 30, I'd like to see that start to break higher and above that. And once it did back here, this was a really nice place to get on board for a nice big move from November into June. Okay, so I'm trying to give you some ideas. Hopefully that helps. Now, again, we're looking at the beginning of the list. Let's just quickly scroll down and go to the middle of the list, and then we'll go a little farther down. But these ones haven't started to turn up at all yet. Everything's still kind of tilted down, no real improvement. And then here's Goldman Sachs, PPO trend line, nice and flat. Any sort of curve up here at all, and it would be probably taken off to the upside. I do like that the stock is starting to improve compared to its peers. So it's not great yet. It's just no longer as bad as it was. I think Toby Keith calls it, I'm not as good as I once was, but I'm as good as I ever was. You see this downtrend line here, and it's trying to break through that. I think once it gets going, and especially if the whole broad group of banks start to get going, you'll see that move. Okay, so here's Moody's. This chart still looks out of touch. There's nothing here I like about it. It's not setting up yet. So that one would be low on my list. And then if we could go to the third series of charts, again, just trending lower. This was a really strong stock. It wobbled here in the beginning of the year, but pulling back to, I'll call it 3-month lows, no real big deal. But that's one to look at. Here's Citizens Financial, again, downtrending, hasn't started to turn up at all yet, so there's no real need to rush in. Zions Bank Corp, same thing, hasn't really started to turn. Charles Schwab still making lower lows. So none of these are kind of getting me all fired up, I guess is the best way to describe that. But hopefully I've explained how to manipulate the chart list, get through. So if you saw something you wanted to look for, whatever, in software services or semiconductors or energy stocks or whatever, get them in a sort order you can rank them, then go through and try to find the ones with the nicer setups and start to work through that way. And then if they kick in, you can start to look at them from a more advantageous point of view rather than the news, because these charts will run for quite a ways before the news will start to figure out that they've been doing that. Thanks for taking the time to join me on Market Buzz. Market Buzz airs Wednesdays at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. You can also see the recording on the StockCharts TV YouTube page. Thank you again. Have a good week trading, and continue to watch to see if we can break out of these lows. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Hey guys, Dave Keller here with StockCharts.com. Thanks so much for watching our video. If you enjoyed it, and we hope you did, hit the like button right below. Also, we have so much new content every day. Consider subscribing to the channel. Just hit the subscribe button in the video or right below. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. Have a fantastic day.